What's going on, guys? Bringing you another video today about invading in Dark Souls 3. I just finished up this build recently. It's a Strength and Faith build that uses Morne's Great Hammer as its main weapon. Strength weapons get a bad rap for being extremely slow and are generally considered to be outclassed by faster weapons. In the first part of this video, I'm going to go over some general tips and tricks to use this weapon to its full potential, and in the second part, I'll show some invasions where you can see the techniques in action. As always, I'll start by going over my build quickly. I'm sitting at soul level 94 with 22 vigor, 22 endurance, 50 strength, and 40 faith. My starting class was the cleric, and my stats are currently boosted by the prisoner's chain. If you want to optimize this build specifically for Morne's Great Hammer, you should have 30 faith instead of 40. You need 30 faith to use the weapon art, but it doesn't scale with faith, it scales with AR, and since the weapon itself doesn't scale with faith, strength is the only thing that matters. However, having 40 faith maximizes the AR of the Dragon Slayer's Great Axe, which is another good choice for this build. I don't use it in the video, but it adds some potential variety to the character. Here you can see my gear. I'm using a maxed +5 Morne's Great Hammer and an unupgraded Cleric Sacred Chime. The only miracle I use is Tears of Denial, which doesn't require any upgrading for the chime. In the offhand I have a simple small leather shield, unupgraded. Most people already know this by now, but all weapon arts only require 1 FP. This infusion regenerates it at around 1 point every 5 seconds, which is enough to give me almost constant access to the weapon art. I always wear the Drain set for fashion. As you can see, I'm actually at 69.9% weight capacity exactly, so I need Havel's Ring for this build. Lloyd's Sword Ring gives a nice AR boost, which is especially good since the weapon art scales with AR. I use the Prisoner's Chain in all my builds because it gives 15 valuable stats, and the Hornet Ring is of course essential for all invasions. Tears of Denial doesn't usually require an Ashen Flask, but it doesn't hurt to have it just in case. That's it for the build. Now let's get into some of the tips and tricks. As many of you already know, the two-handed attacks with an Ultra Great Hammer cannot be parried. If you can tell the person wants to parry you, it's probably a free kill. I intentionally act predictably, and he tries to parry me again. The partial drains all of his stamina, and I get the kill for free. You can deal with R1 spam with the normal setup parries or super armor attacks, but Morne's Great Hammer has the additional option of using the weapon art. If you know they like to spam, you can just walk right up to them and use it. The startup animation has an additional hitbox, so if they're right in front of you, you wind up doing around 1300 damage. If they don't make it that easy on you, you have other options as well. Here I know he likes to dodge my attacks with rolls, so I make myself look vulnerable with an R1 and then parry him as soon as he tries to get me. Baiting people like this is an important tactic when using larger weapons. I know a lot of people like miracle builds so they can use the flashy miracles like Sunlight Spear and Sunlight Blade, but Tears of Denial is probably one of the most useful ones for PvP situations. I don't use offensive miracles because they're not very reliable, and almost any good player can just roll away and dodge them unless you're using the Obscuring Ring and sniping them with binoculars or something. With Tears of Denial active, when you receive fatal damage you get staggered, but survive with 1 HP. However, you can super armor through the staggering that the miracle causes. This, combined with the fact that the person hitting you gets knocked back when Tears procs, can result in some reliable low health kills. If you look closely there, you can see that his sword gets knocked back on the hit that would have killed me, preventing him from attacking again and allowing me to finish my weapon art. There are also some more obvious applications of the weapon art, like attacking people in closed areas. He wasn't going anywhere. That's it for the tips. Now let's get into the actual invasions and see how these techniques are applied. We'll start off with a cute little 1v2 gank I ran into. You can see me looking around as I'm a little bit wary that this could be a trap. I managed to convince myself it's not, and I decided to go in. It was. The first thing I want to do in any scenario like this is reset the situation. They still have me off balance, and I want to put us back on equal footing, or as equal a footing as a 1v2 can be. They made the mistake of not clearing out these enemies, so I have a chance to catch my breath. While the host is distracted from some of the mobs over there, I decide to go straight for the Phantom. He doesn't get caught in my initial sweeps, and I take some damage for it. The host is almost done with those other enemies, so I decide to retreat to a more favorable position. I let them think that they've cornered me and get an easy L2. Unfortunately, neither of them actually fell off the edge. While the Phantom is healing, I trade hits with the host. As much as I'd like to be able to finish him off there, I decide it's more important to not risk it and keep my Tears of Denial up. This miracle is worth more than just keeping you alive in a situation where you otherwise would have died. Here a random Blade of the Dark Moon dies, and I accidentally open a message trying to remove the notification. This, combined with my poor stamina management, scares me off, and I try and run away. They know I still have plenty of Estus left, and they don't want to let me heal again. This is where saving Tears of Denial comes in handy. They try and chase my roll, and I'm able to hit them both with my weapon art. I survive the lethal damage, and I'm not staggered because of my super armor. I'm not really sure what happens here. It works out in the end. The takeaway here is that Tears of Denial is very versatile, and making sure not to let it proc early won me this invasion. I have a new mic now. I set up Tears of Denial right away, and I look over this ridge and see that they're getting ready. I can't really say if this was a gank or if just people trying to progress through the game, but it doesn't matter. They take note of my polite greeting and come to fight me. I wait on this staircase not so I can get a plunging attack by jumping off it, but so I can do a little trick. You might have seen me do it in the first invasion. No one expects that one. High risk, high reward. I don't necessarily expect this swing to hit, and when I see he tries to roll behind me for the punish, I just use my weapon art. I turn my character to follow him as I'm casting it so he can't get the backstab off and interrupt me. This guy's gotta be scared. I just evaporated 2 of his phantoms. He goes for an unsafe attack, and I hyper armor through it for the 2 hits and kill. Knowing the area and my weapon better than my opponents allowed me to get all 3 kills without ever being near dying myself. I see these 3 jokers picking on a lone invader. There's a bunch of prism stones on the ground indicating where they'd stand, so I assume they're just sitting here waiting to kill people. There's actually 4 circles, but only 3 players, so I assume this red guy killed one of them already. I jump in as soon as possible to try and break up the 3v1. With 2 of them focusing on me, I decide to move over to where the other invader is. I prefer to take this as a 2v3. It's easy to accidentally lock on to your friends, so be careful. Friendly fire incidents are also very common with Morne's weapon art, so I'm trying to be mindful of my fellow red. I know he's using pyromancy to back me up, so I decide to get in there and break the stalemate. I'm rewarded for my instant kill with a fireball to the face. Ouch. You can see here that the cleric NPC helps and heals me. Now that we're on even footing, it's time to press our advantage. I use the B button as my jump, and I accidentally jump instead of rolling there. I don't really expect any of these running attacks to hit, but it does distract people, and it can set them up to be baited into a weapon art or something else. This guy manages to dodge away with rolls, but he's not in a position to punish me. I'm perfectly happy turning this into 2 1v1s rather than 1 2v2. However, I know my other invader is using pyromancies as his main tool, and those aren't very effective in duel situations, so I go over to help him out. I keep an eye on the phantom behind me so I don't get hit for free. The host is starting to summon more. It's time to finish him off. People really love the Ultra Great Sword's rolling attack, but it's not nearly as safe as they like to think it is. With a little help from a friend, we're able to destroy another host. That's all for the invasion, so if that's what you watch for, you can probably stop here. Here you can see me at the regular dueling hotspot looking specifically for S-Stock and Dark Sword users so I can summon them and demonstrate a couple more techniques. Given that these are the weapons considered most overpowered, I think it's worth showing a few more instances of my perceivedly underpowered weapon going against them. Don't mind this clip in the background, it's not even of the same character. I just don't want to have a blank screen while I'm going over some quick things. I know that duels and invasions are very different, but the techniques in them can be used in all basic PvP situations. I don't use Tears of Denial in duels because I think it's a little bit scummy, so there's no miracle use in these counters. Feel free to change the build however you want, but this is just how I do it. Ultimately, people can say for any given fight that the opponent was just unskilled and that I wouldn't have won against a good player. Be that as it may, for those who have a tough time against all players using these weapons, hopefully you can glean some good techniques from this final bid. Buffed or unbuffed, the things you do should be almost exactly the same. They're still not going to be able to outtrade your gigantic hammer. I can see that this guy is walking towards me and to the side. I know he wants to try and get a poke in, so I'm able to super armor through it and get 1000 damage off in trade. He knows better than to try and just hit me straight up, and he tries to punish me after my first whiff, and I just whip around and hit him again. Again, this isn't some demonstration of me beating players that I think are very good, or that say I'm very good at dueling. This is just some basic tips and tricks to use against these weapons. Great hammers aren't just big, they're also really long, so starting my swing from super far away gave me the free hit. He fat rolls and I catch him with weapon art. Start your swings from as far away as possible and they won't even have a chance to effectively trade. The things I'm showing in these clips are in addition of course to the things that you can do with any weapon, setup parries, things like that. I just want to showcase specifically things that Morne's Great Hammer does. Keeping track of the way your opponent plays is also very important. Here I can see that he has basically no fear, runs up and uses his weapon art. He also gets baited into doing a rolling attack after I miss with an R1. I know he's going to approach me again because that's what he does, and I severely outtrade him. Here you can see some more general aggression. You don't need to hit with every swing, in fact you should probably miss most of the time, but it's good to put some fear in them. Again, as he approaches, I just throw out a move because I know it's safe, and I manage to hit him. Knowing your opponent's patterns makes it easy to win with any weapon, even more so with a giant weapon that kills in 2 hits. I start out here right away, throwing out attacks at max range to see what he does. It's generally safe enough to throw out 2 two-handed R1s and then roll away. I know he's not going to randomly rush me down, he waits for me to look vulnerable before he attacks. With this in mind, I know that I can just bait him in for a kill later on. For now, I'll keep throwing out safe attacks at a distance while I wait for him to overextend. This is exactly what I'm looking for. He tries a rolling attack after rolling through one of my attacks. The next time he does it, I parry him easily. By being patient throughout the fight and throwing out attacks at a safe distance, I don't get hit a single time. From the very start against this great shield user, I'm throwing out long-range attacks, not even letting him get close enough. I don't let him get close enough to tank and counterattack, so he gets impatient. I saw him throw out that one rolling attack, and I know he'll try to do it again. Another really good technique against great shield users is to hit their shield a couple times and lower their stamina, and then hit them with the weapon arm. This will almost always stagger them. Against players that can't be baited this easily, a lot of these techniques won't be that effective. But the whole purpose of this part of the video is to show that these are techniques that'll work against some people. Duels are a really sterile environment, and not all of the baits and punishes work so effectively during invasions. However, the biggest takeaway is to keep track of what the people you're fighting tend to do in various situations. In a vacuum, a parry or super armor decision may look like a very impressive hard read on the opponent's choice. However, in a lot of situations, it's actually the result of not just guessing what the other person will do, but knowing what they'll do, and why they'll do it. That just about does it for this video. Hopefully this was helpful to any fledgling Strength Faith players. You can absolutely substitute out Tears of Denial for some more fun miracle if you choose, but I'm relatively confident that this is the most effective permutation of the build. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. You can check out my channel for other ones like it, or subscribe for more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.